Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda. And Steve, we've got some good news this week. Pretty good result on GDT.
Yeah, I'm sure it has swept the world. We've seen a fantastic GDT result as a truck goes past. Strongest for whole milk powder, dazzling result, not the biggest in history, but when you look across the board though, we've seen good results in most categories. Only AMF was disappointing and it was just flat really.
Yeah.
But probably take more positives away from that than anything. Interesting where it leaves us in context.
Yeah.
New Zealand's got the cheapest butter, and otherwise, a fairly good result across the board.
Sure. Yeah, especially for whole milk powder, obviously, for those New Zealand farm gate returns.
Yeah, and it's boosted farm gate, the spot value of milk, back over $7.
Wow.
New Zealand language.
Mm-hmm.
Just putting it in context, while this is a thunderous outcome, when you look back at the level of volatility we've seen in the distant past, back between 08 and 14, this sort of pales, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
But we're about average, a little bit above average now in terms of average pricing for whole milk powder.
Mm-hmm.
But this hasn't been the most volatile outcome. And some context around this, Joe, which is interesting. We saw some data out of the US on stocks of non-fat dry milk.
This came out just before the event.
Yeah, the same morning, I think, or the same day, showing how in May that had tightened quite a bit, which was due to strong exports. Production also fell. That's since alleviated because I think during June we've seen that that situation not so tight,
sure,
and caused that market to go sideways. And you can see those price comparisons there for skim milk powder and non-fat in the top right. So everything going flat to sideways in the lead up to this event, which was part of the surprise, I guess.
Yeah.
Wasn't just about whole milk powder. And then in Europe, we've seen the butter values improve. We've seen the cream multiple get above 1 or back to about 1 in that market. And so we've seen that big difference that was there for some time between New Zealand and European butter prices.
Yeah, they've really converged, haven't they?
Yeah, so that European product is now a little bit more expensive. Yeah, which probably helped a bit. There was a very steady build-up for whole milk powder before this event, and since we got to the bottom of the market, which was around mid-April, this has been a steady, slow recovery. Sure. And that, just a reminder, the relativities with Chinese imported product there.
Yeah, and that's really key to this, isn't it? That just to that maintenance of import demand from China.
And then boom, that result, which even I'd say all of the analysts around the world are scratching their head. No one knew this was coming. No one saw this.
We admit it.
Yeah, it was not obvious. And then this huge scurrying since to actually explain why.
Yeah.
But we don't know, and not many people do. So internally in China, there's obviously a stock build, which we'll no doubt see more of and understand the magnitude of as time goes.
Absolutely, and as always, one event is not a trend. It all depends on who turns up and who's short and all of that. So, with that caveat.
This was, however, extremely strong demand, the strongest result for early round demand. So we tracked that out of the GDT data, just showing where it was. That's the little target there. It wasn't the highest result in terms of percentage gain since this measure has been tracked, but certainly the strongest demand came to the event that we've seen. So that's, and earlier periods favoured. Obviously there's a tail off there as you'd expect as we head towards New Zealand spring. We're going to see values decline, but so that's the expectation. We said it would go sideways when we did our outlook a couple of weeks ago. Probably going to go sideways or flatter from here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Skim milk powder was also a very good result. New Zealand C2 lifted by 5% in medium heat, which was good in the context. Dominated by China, who bought 3/4 of the product in that round. Again, lifting the premium for New Zealand powder over European product. And again, that downward sloping profile, but you can see that premium in context as well. It takes it back up to where it's been higher, but it's also back up to the top end of the premium over Arla's product.
Absolutely.
And then what we've also done in the last week is issued a global outlook, our quarterly output's always a bigger drop when we do the quarterly product. Just showing there in that graphic what we regard as the hot items impacting the global situation.
Yeah, and obviously COVID at the top of the list, as has been the case for most of the year. But flowing from that, there's plenty of other issues, as well as weather-related issues heading into the Southern Hemisphere spring. So
but we're calling out this, what we're calling a refill-driven optimism, while we go through this staggered reactivation of markets. That there's this, everyone's kind of milk drunk, that there's this, recovery.
It's a surge, yeah.
And cheese demand is benefiting from that, and so that's soaking up quite a bit of milk. Where we go from here, what recession demand looks like for cheese, how the rest of the world it deals with the impact of recession and what it does to demand.
Yeah, because that's still really flowing through to a lot of these economies.
Absolutely.
With the lack of tourism, the hit to the domestic economy, all of those things, and how that's going to impact demand.
And it's going to be a slow burn. We think, though, that fats are most exposed.
Sure.
With the loss of cream use, the weaker food service use of butter. That's where we see the greatest scope for stock build, and in our analysis that's the weakest outlook. But that European balance is most critical. Milk supply versus cheese demand.
Yeah.
It's a big equation that matters the most. What happens to that cheese demand as we go? And we don't have a lot of precedent, certainly don't have a lot of good data compared to the US as to what happens in recession in Europe. So we call out some other things, some big watch outs, government measures that might stimulate demand or supply. And the US has been very active in that space, but who knows if that isn't what's going on in China. Obviously, Brexit is looming now, and the no-deal prospects are getting stronger each day.
They certainly are.
And, of course, the oil market. So that's a big outlook, a lot of detail on that. So for those interested, please contact us.
Yes.
Joe, it's over to you. You've got a chart of the week, which is interesting stuff.
The chart of the week this week, Steve, is around the debt issue for New Zealand dairy farms, and just the latest report out of the banking sector. It looks like there has been a bit of a draw or pay down of debt across the industry, which is very pleasing to see.
Yeah, it's like someone blew the whistle.
Yeah.
About this time last year,
Yeah.
and said after a steady increase in dairy debt over time, after a lot of I suppose a long period of calls that this was getting too big and the banking sector was being warned by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand to watch this, and all of a sudden you can clearly see there the mitigation. It's not a massive cut, but it's certainly underway. It's 4% year on year.
Yeah, and it's definitely a trend there. And I guess, in the context of what's happening in the world, it was fortuitous that farmers were able to pay down this debt. And interesting, at the moment, the New Zealand government's announced a big package for agriculture to get the economy moving, given that international tourism is not going to come back anytime soon. So hopefully, despite all the uncertainty, Kiwi farmers are in for a bit of a better time.
Okay, interesting stuff. Okay, look, that's it from us. We hope you've enjoyed watching. We'll be back next week. We're locked down for a while, so we will make movies each week for you to watch because there's not much else to do outside. And I've got the challenge of finding a haircut because mine's coming up. Joanne, as you can see, has just had a new do, so she got in before things shut. Watch this develop. See you next week.